Hello, and welcome to today's A-Team Group webinar, covering key steps in adopting cloud and SaaS delivery for enterprise data. My name is Colin Gibson. I'm a product manager for the Cloud Data Management Capability Framework at the EDM console, and I will be moderating today's webinar. We've got a great lineup of expert speakers. We have Aydin Elfeki, who is Global Lead for Trading and Risk Solutions at Luxoft. Ashok Kumar, who's VP of Enterprise Data Management at Voya Financial. Devendra Budhia, Executive Director and Head of Product for EDM at IHS Markit. Amichai Fenner, Product Manager of Data Catalog at Octopi. And Sumanda Basu, Head of Data Quality Americas at Societe Generale. I will ask them to introduce themselves in a moment. But first, some information on how you can participate in today's webinar. To the right of the video, you will see a box for questions and polls. We'll be running 2 polls during the webinar, so please vote and help us gauge industry opinion. I'll remind you when the polls are coming up. If you'd like to ask the experts any questions, we will take questions from the audience throughout the webinar. So please feel free to add yours to the box under the questions tab. That's enough from me, so over to our speakers in turn to introduce themselves and say a little about their interest in cloud and SaaS for enterprise data. So first of all, Aydin.
Thank you, Colin. So hi, everyone. So I work for Luxoft and we operate, I'm global lead for trading and risk solutions. So we work on 2 fronts. The first one is software integration, and that's mainly the trading and risk management softwares like Murex, Calypso, Finastra. And the other fold is cloud and cloud digitalization journey. And what we did is we combined both to help our clients move into their journey to moving to more as a service and adopting more advanced cloud solutions. So happy to be with you today.
Thanks, Aydin. Next, Ashok.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. I'm Ashok Kumar. I manage the enterprise data infrastructure for Voya, parts of it. So currently focused on some of the master data management implementations. So organizations, people, and intermediaries that we work with. In parallel, we're looking at moving all of our data science capabilities into the cloud, leveraging some of the built-in capabilities into cloud on the cloud providers, and also additionally adding on from other vendors that support it. So glad to be here. Look forward to the discussion.
Thanks, Ashok. Devendra.
Hi, thank you, Colin. Morning, afternoon, evening all. Yeah, my name is Devendra Budhia. I'm head of product for EDM, which is the enterprise data management platform that we sell to the industry. I've been in a role at EDM for 4 years, and we've clearly undertaken a journey to take our traditional client base, which was on-premise, through to managed service. So that's run by a managed services team, and we're on a journey to also offer the core EDM platform as a SaaS platform as well, which clearly is cloud enabled.
Very good. Next up, Amichai.
Hi, everyone. Amichai Fenner. I've been in the data industry for the past about 11 years in different roles in data teams. And currently I'm with Octopi, which is an automated lineage catalog and discovery platform. I've been here for the past 2.5 years, serving as a product manager, mainly focusing on the catalog.
Thanks, Amichai. And last but not least, Sumanda.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, A-Team, for inviting. Sumanda Basu, I'm Head of Data Quality and Societe Generale Americas. Before moving into data quality role, in the last 2 months, I was kind of leading data governance and technology for data within America's business in Societe Generale. Overall, 15 years plus in data management has been worked with JP Morgan Chase and Citibank before coming here. Looking forward to the discussion today. Thank you.
Excellent. So thank you all. So before we get into some of the questions, let's get started with an audience poll up front. So the question is, to what extent has your organization moved enterprise data to the cloud? You've got options ranging from to the greatest extent possible down to not at all. So please give an indication of where you are on that journey. And while the audience answers that question, let's start off maybe with Devendra. To what extent do you see in your clients, your financial institutions, having moved their enterprise data to the cloud?
Okay, so just before I answer that, I just want to clarify the term cloud. So clearly, there's a number of terms out there. There's like cloud, hosted, managed service, software as a service. So when we talk about the cloud, from a data management perspective, what we see is obviously our managed service. Clearly it's cloud enabled and it runs on our preferred cloud provider. But then also parts of our data management solution, which we're migrating to the cloud. And what I mean by that is software as a service. So truly a single version of the platform across all of our clients. Now, all of our recent opportunities and opportunities of the last 2 years are cloud enabled on our managed service. We've clearly seen a shift in the industry where the marketplace is looking for a data management platform which runs on a managed service on a cloud provider. Okay, and there's a number of benefits to that. And one of the key drivers, I would say, last couple of years is the post-COVID. So we're seeing historically clients used to go back to the project board or exec management and get approval for data management platforms to be cloud enabled. But now it's the other way around. If a prospect has to buy a piece of software and it's not cloud enabled, they need to get approval for that. So it's the default delivery model that we see. And what we're seeing is just like us today, we're all in different locations, but none of us in our offices, right? So security is a concern with the cloud provider. And it also then allows our clients to focus on, operational tasks rather than IT infrastructure tasks. So they're kind of the main drivers. And, by default, it's cloud all the way, if that makes sense. And, again, to differentiate, there's public cloud, private cloud, and there's residency issues. But generally, the generic term cloud, yes, that's the default delivery model that we see.
Interesting. Maybe I can bring in Samanda. Samanda, where is SocGen on the cloud journey for enterprise data?
Thank you, Colin. Thank you, Devendra, for a great introduction. Overall, I can talk about SocGen or other financial institutions has been kind of pretty slow in moving to cloud. I think they have been really taking measured steps over the last several years and really figuring out what approach works for them. And so far, our understanding is most of the areas, like some of the systems of records, or those things are not really moving to cloud, or anything that is more mission critical or core computing or maybe core banking application, those are staying within our IT infrastructure, classic IT infrastructure. But things which are more advanced stages, for example, front-end systems, any interface with clients, any set of digital channels, any mobile applications, those things are kind of one of the prime targets of moving to cloud. Like some cases where your vendors are moving to cloud, you are actually working with the vendors so that you can get the benefits of vendors moving to clouds, and you are and the financial institutions are moving to clouds. Overall, as an industry, the focus has been primarily on SaaS adoption and infrastructure as a service adoptions in certain targeted use cases, mostly around data and analytics platform, digital channel use cases, any specific fraud and risk use cases, and any of the regulatory initiatives that can help get used the massive set of data volume and the reporting requirements, and some of the machine learning and cloud workloads in the AML space are moving to cloud more faster than the core operations of the banking.
So you're saying targeted use cases rather than wholesale adoption of everything? I
agree with you, yes.
Okay, that makes sense. So maybe we can take a look at the poll results and see what that's telling us. So there's an interesting spread of results. Nobody is saying not at all, and 40% are saying to a great extent. I think that's probably saying that nobody is saying to the greatest extent possible. Devendra, is there anything there that surprises you or piques your interest?
Not from a data management perspective. Again, I think it's linked to what Samantha said. Like there's data vendors out there now that are doing data delivery, their data delivery mechanism via the cloud, right? So, some of the big players are now still doing point-to-point delivery of their data sets. They're putting it into the cloud and using some of the newer technologies available, disseminating that information across multiple clients. So it's just natural to have like a data management platform, cloud enabled, where you're reducing the movement of data, if that makes sense. And especially as these data sets get larger and larger. So I think the poll reflects what we see from a data management vendor perspective.
Great, thank you. So Iadine, if I can bring you in, what are you seeing as the drivers behind moving enterprise data and software as a service apps to the cloud?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I work mainly in the banking sector, and in the post-pandemic, what we see is a change of behavior from a business perspective, but also customer perspective, and both are driving into more cloud and as a service. From a business perspective, the first thing is that remote workforce and the mobility. So cloud definitely will help facilitate that remote work. The other side of it is a key aspect is around cost, not only cost reduction, but also cost transparency. And we know that cloud provides that transparency on what the bank is paying for. Also, it gives a kind of flexibility where they don't pay in advance. They pay only for the usage, and that's quite interesting in terms of saving the cost over time and giving it, again, more transparency. The other side of the business is more with the new functionalities. Let's say we work with digital banks and neobanks, and when they create a new product, time to market is key for them. And the sooner they issue those products on the market, the more market share they get. So it's key for them to be able to, and cloud offer them that possibility, is to deliver new products in execution or in the market in weeks rather than months. On the customer side, it's more if I take the treasury business, is the omni-channel. So the customers today use multiple channels to get access to products, and that creates naturally more volume and more computation capacity and scalability also, because different periods of the day and different periods of the year, they can be more or less customers, and that drives also cloud, again, provides good answers to that. And I will finish by something around analytics. Most of the banks today are looking for real-time monitoring of the customer's behavior and that sentiment kind of trading. So that's, again, data, having data on the cloud facilitate, and that, all that computation power gives them that quasi real-time kind of understanding of what their customers are doing in front of their screens. So those are the key drivers we see behind adopting cloud and as a service recently.
So quite a range from time to market, cost, and flexibility.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ashok, what are you seeing as the drivers for cloud?
I think Iadine covered a lot of them. I wanted to emphasize just the two, and I wanted to kind of second what Devendra said. We have a cloud-first strategy. Anything new, significant that we do, if you're not doing it on the cloud, you have to provide an explanation as to why it doesn't, why it can't be on the cloud. So kind of the scale have tilted to saying, do you want to go to the cloud? Why? Security, all of that, to why are you not on the cloud? So the reasons for us, as Iadine mentioned, probably are similar. One that hasn't been mentioned was ability to talent management, ability to attract and retain talent. So, as technology people, we're always looking for the latest, greatest stuff. Where is you want to be, whereas the famous hockey player Wayne Gretzky said, you want to be where the puck is going to be, not where it is. So if the market is moving towards cloud, where the industry momentum is to move your infrastructure, your capabilities into the cloud, every ambitious technology person that you want to hire, they want to be working on the cloud. So one of the ways you retain and attract talent is you work on the stuff that is interesting, that is new. The other reason, obviously, from business perspective, is agility and speed to market. We can focus on the core business where we bring value to the customer. So Voya is in the business of providing retirement plans and employee benefits and investment management. So we can focus on those core capabilities as opposed to focusing on how do we build a new server, how do I do the failover. A lot of those things, there's a cost to it from the cloud, but it's already been done, it's standardized, and we can focus on where our differentiators are, our business value. I think those were the two key ones. Maybe another one that even you also mentioned was the ability to handle the load patterns that are spiky. So if, today, if you had a really significant activity in part of the year, end of the year, end of the month, you needed to buy capacity to cover all of those loads. With cloud, in some cases, not everywhere, you have the ability to scale up and down dynamically. You pay differently, and so things that you weren't able to do earlier, now we're hoping to be able to do.
Yeah, another driver I've heard from some of our council members is the ability to innovate and sort of that access to more advanced technologies, maybe on cloud, than you would easily get access to on-prem.
Absolutely, bringing new technologies on-prem, it is a much longer process.
Yeah.
Most of the to bring it on-prem, install it, evaluate it, as opposed to, hey, here's a login, go evaluate it, see if it works for you, and here's a subscription model that's tried before you buy it. That makes it a lot faster to experiment and try new technology and service.
Very good. So let me bring in Amikai. How can financial institutions approach the migration of enterprise data to the cloud and avoid all of those typical problems in a project and a mass migration such as scope creep, cost creep, etc.? Well, what's the best approach and some advice for institutions?
Yeah, thanks, Colin. So I may be stating the obvious over here. So of course, the key is preparation, right? So preparation is going to help you avoid those surprises in cost and scope, as you mentioned. You really need to plan the project as best you can. So if we're talking about migrating, the classic database, for instance, so you want to easily check, what objects are no longer in use, what really needs to be migrated. I mean, if we're talking, you mentioned before, idea about maintaining or paying only for what you use. You want to make sure you're migrating only what you actually need, so you're not paying any extra costs. You'll be surprised at how many junk objects you have in your legacy on-prem database. So do you have any unnecessary duplicates of data? So with our customers, we see that all the time. Which processes are involved and need to be adjusted to read from all these new sources or targets where we're moving the data to? What scripts need to be updated, right? We're moving between technologies. They don't all always support the same syntaxes and stuff. So you want to plan out really well, for example, where you need to make those changes, not only in your database, but in all different tools that are corresponding with and sourcing data from it. Another example, what reports need to be adjusted, again, in that same way. which dependencies you need to create between the different objects that you have in your new database, in your new infrastructure. You need to make changes to the sequences, the timings, and all of those things. Now, these are all keys. It sounds kind of obvious, right? It's preparation and it's plan, but it's really easier said than done. Having a tool that helps you automatically create lineage and something that's self-updating, that at any point in time can tell you how data is moving from one place to another, what processes are involved, understanding where you have any type of syntax, any piece of code within your entire infrastructure, cataloging all of your data, really helps you understand the current picture of what's going on in all stages of your migration. As long as it's automatically up to date, at any point you can see what's going on within the project, how you're doing, what the scope is, what's left to do. And the last thing you want to do is, be blindsided and lengthen the project, or worse, if the project doesn't really go well, then, lose trust in the data. Maybe that's kind of the worst outcome that we've seen.
So plan and plan again.
Yeah,
I think you're saying. Very good.
pretty much.
So Samantha, from your view, what you've seen, what can financial institutions do to mitigate those risks of scope creep and cost creep? What's the best approach to take?
Yeah, I think Amikai presented it very well. I would reiterate that start with a business goal. Start with a focus. What is the vision? What you want to do, and then talk about, okay, what data do I need? What functionality I want to move, and all of these things are kind of plan are super critical, because this cloud migration is one of the lifetime opportunities, and you get to do your spring cleaning, fall cleaning. Not only that, but ensure I suggest you not to do lift and shift. Just don't move everything, whatever you have. Ensure, I think you spoke about lineage. What data do you need? If something is not part of your lineage, of your critical flow, maybe it is not required. Look at it. And if you can retire those. So there are different approaches companies follow. That could be lift and shift, or rehost, could be replatform. But I would suggest do refactor, do re-architecture. Some cases, it's your opportunity to do it. You have time and budget and visibility to do it. And then some cases, you probably start from the scratch. Maybe rewrite the whole applications, make it cloud native, compliant with microservice architecture, change it so that it goes for another 15 years without Band-Aid. You have been applying for the last 40 years, right? So in some cases, retire all these applications you don't need, functionality you don't need. There are so many duplicates you don't need. So I align with you, Amikai, the way you said.
And you're saying you're missing an opportunity if you just lift and shift, I think, is one of the themes.
Agree with you. Some cases you may have to do it. Maybe the applications are exactly working well, and maybe you are maybe don't have enough courage to make changes. So those cases, lift and shift may be the way to go. Or sometimes you just need to beat some deadlines. But ideally, you should plan for refactoring, re-architecting your solutions.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. Let's do another poll question at this point then. So we talked about all of the opportunity and the approach to take, but there's always going to be challenges and hurdles. So the next poll question is, what are the data and data management challenges of adopting cloud and SaaS apps for enterprise data at your organization? And you've got a range of suggested challenges here that will come up in the poll. And it's a multiple answer one, so take the ones that are appropriate to your organization. And while you're doing that, Devendra, not to read from that list, but what are you seeing as some of the challenges of moving to cloud for enterprise data?
Okay, so I think I agree. It's not a simple lift and shift, right? Like even though in the most basic case you could do a lift and shift, I think one of the key aspects when you do that is just automation. So when you've got multiple applications within your estate, you can automate them through like an enterprise scheduler or event-driven processes. But when you're going cloud native and you've got multiple platforms on the cloud that need to talk to each other, you're still in charge of that automation. Like you cannot hand that over to each one of your cloud providers or underlying platforms. So again, that's something that we see as a challenge. We work with our clients to ensure that the automation part, where we're responsible, we're clearly responsible for that, and where the client's responsible, they maintain that. So then that also means planning your target operating model as well from a data management perspective. Having well-defined runbooks, and making sure that the responsibility, because when we say cloud, we're not talking about just the EDM running on the cloud, we're taking responsibility of operating that platform as well on behalf of the client. So at that point in time, integration becomes very important, like identity providers, making sure there's single sign-on, ensuring from a penetration test and security concern, you're absolutely secure. So these are all considerations that are taken on board and some of the challenges that we see from a client perspective. But ultimately, it benefits the client because they can move, their resources that kind of do the infrastructure work into a higher value task within their organization. And they can focus on, then expanding their footprint in terms of data management, bringing more data sets under control and working on that governance model, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. Thanks, Devendra. So we could add the shared responsibility model could go to that list onto that list of challenges. Iadine, what challenges do you see people facing?
I'll start with data security. So even though cloud providers have improved a lot in terms of authentication, access control, encryption, secure deletion, archiving, data masking, all of that is really world-class kind of features. A bank still, in terms of risk assessment, they need to split their data between the core data and then the data that can be put on the cloud. And it's not easy all the time, especially when we go into the risk management area and where there's dependency between the market data, the pricing, and the models and the curves. So it's what data is core and what data can put on the cloud. The answer to that is not obvious all the time. The second thing is more driven by why we go to cloud. So one of the advantages of cloud is to bring data that is normally on different on-premises platforms into one space. And by having all the data in one space, it offers, as we said earlier, better reporting capabilities and more efficiency in using the data. Now, that comes with a side effect in terms of localization, where to locate that data, in which country. And if we take, for instance, examples of international global banks, the operating into multiple locations, there's that fragmented regulation across jurisdictions create also a complexity because each set of data still has to comply with a different jurisdiction, which will offset a bit the benefit of having all the data into one space. But overall, there are solutions, and what we see on the ground, there's a more pragmatic approach to some of those issues that prioritize the business and having access to data with quality and in real time, and then do some arbitrage on those different challenges.
Great, thanks, Iadine. So yeah, I'm hearing adding security challenges and data sovereignty challenges to the list of possible hurdles. Maybe finally on this question, Ashok, any additional thoughts on challenges?
I think perhaps just one to add as we move things to the cloud, there's going to be a hybrid state where some of your data, some of your applications are going to be on premise and some are going to be in the cloud. So handling a hybrid state, there's certain concept of data gravity that we talk about, where data is useful when it's combined, right? When you can do analytics with it together. And there's certain natural clumpiness to the data. And so the plan for complexity around where when everything is moved to the cloud, or most of it is moved to the cloud, things are going to be simpler, easier. But as you start your journey, besides the lift and shift that you're able to do, or some applications that are perhaps not as connected, able to move it. Once you get to the meat of it, plan for a lot of complexity. You have to think about the concept of data gravity. You have to move things in quantum. And perhaps just one more to add is, security and privacy concerns besides the technical challenges with perhaps the serverless functions and getting everybody comfortable with how the network is configured, who can contact where in the zero trust model in the cloud. You also have to think about training for people. The InfoSec folks that you've been working with that are very comfortable with how to do certain things for security, you need to bring everybody from high-level architect, engineer to the operations folks. And that process is going to take time. Be patient, allocate extra time, contingency as needed.
Don't forget the people. Yeah, very good. Okay, so lots of things there to think about and to add on to listen. Let's take a look at the poll results then to see what the audience thought of some of the challenges. So I guess far and away at the top there is legacy systems and silos, and then a pretty even spread across other things, except nobody's seeing interoperability as a challenge. That's interesting. Iadine, any reflections on those results?
I think understanding the data is a good point, but that links to one comment said earlier on the importance of building a business case around the data so that we know how to use that data once it is on the cloud. So I like this point, and I think it's an important one.
Yeah, great. Okay, moving on. Samantha, you were closely involved in the creation of the EDM Console's Cloud Data Management Capabilities Framework, CDMC. So what's your view? How does a framework like CDMC help an organization address those challenges that we've talked through?
Yeah, exactly. So when I was listening to the conversation, I was exactly thinking the CDMC could be the answer. Let's look at, I think we spoke about fragmentation, we spoke about lack of interoperability, the challenges, there is no consistency in approach. So overall industry lacked a set of best practices. There was a lack of training, there was no certification available, there is no real, the expectations, like as an institution, there is no structured framework of capabilities and controls. So I can implement my cloud adoptions, and I don't know if I am moving in the right path. Or as a CSP or application provider or a data provider, there is no consistent requirements. So if I go to institution A, they are asking for a set of things. If I go to institution B, they're asking for another set of things, and maybe very different standards. So as a technology provider, it's a huge problem for me. And again, the consultants, if I am or maybe solution provider or service integrator, again, I have a bigger problem. Who do I listen to? The technology providers or data providers or institutions or both? Or even the bigger problem is the regulators. How do they regulate in such a dynamic market? Again, we are considering of the data localization challenges, other security challenges, and especially when data is stored in one country, originated from another country. What do I look at? So it's really a problem when you see the industry-wise, there was not a consistent solution. So the proposal was both CSPs and the financial institutions, they all work together under EDM councils. They almost spend, I think 300 plus people put together at least 100 hours, each of them. That means 30,000 hours worth of intelligence and maturity has gone into developing this. That's what I tell people. It basically, if you use this framework, it is not a standard, by the way. It is something somewhere in between the principles and standard. It's like a framework. If you use this and build your own standard that work for you, it will save a lot of time. You have the inbuilt maturity that you gain. You probably have to employ 100 people, each of them providing 300 hours worth of service. Okay, so it's a set of best practices, set of controls that will help cloud journey to a great extent.
Great. Thanks, Samantha. That's a nice summary of it, and yeah, it gives people a leg up, I think, and it gives them a framework to assess themselves and assess their progress. If people haven't seen it there, if they go onto the EDM console website, you can download it for free. It's a free license for internal use.
Colin, if I may just add what Sumanda said, I think
Absolutely.
it also gives us a common vocabulary. Maybe that's where right now people use different terms for different things. Having at least a reference terminology where people can say, this is what I mean when I say that. That to me, that's one other big benefit in addition to what Sumanda you cited.
Thank you.
Okay, no, thank you for that. I'm going to dip into the audience questions. And there's one that had 2 votes rather than 1 vote, so I'll go to that one first. And I think somebody touched on this earlier, is how best can we integrate cloud strategy for enterprise data with cloud strategy for market data? Do we see those things having to go together, or can they be addressed separately? Does anybody want to take that?
So, go on, Aidan.
No, I just take one example, and then I think it's a good point. So if we take the market data, and then from a bank perspective, market data on its own is not sufficient. What we need also is the the portfolios data, and then the transactions data, and there's other sets of data. So that dependency is to be taken into consideration, and it's not a market data strategy versus the other data strategy. It needs to be a comprehensive strategy that takes into consideration all those dependencies among the different types of data.
Right. No, great point. And another question is that we need to start small. Where is a good place to start, and then how to move on from there? Has anybody seen an obvious place to do as your first foray into the cloud? Where would you start?
Maybe I'll take that. I think one of the things we kind of focused on was applications that are not very much connected to the enterprise, not perhaps core to it. So there's a one-off application to do some reporting, or there's a one-off application to do workflow. Starting from those that are not core and will not, even if it's there's an issue with it, it's not going to stop your business processes. Self-contained, a few applications to start there. That's how we have done it. Kind of building momentum from there. You get the people trained, get people comfortable, get the processes and operating model worked out, and then you can take the next step of moving further applications.
Yeah, no, thanks, Ashok. That's great. So really supporting that idea of starting small, starting safe, I guess. Yeah. Okay. Just to remind people that if they want to put any more questions into the chat, we'll try and catch up on those and deal with a few more of those later on. But let's move on. Amichai, how can enterprises take advantage of the migration as soon as it is complete, if there ever is such a thing as a migration being complete? But how do you move on from that initial migration?
Yeah, so that's a good point. First of all, Colin, migrations tend to take to not complete the way you mentioned. A lot of times companies end up with kind of one leg in the cloud and one leg on-prem for a certain amount of time for all kinds of different reasons. We already touched on getting rid of the mess. So there's a lot of benefits in that, right? Creating a new model that fits your data better, your current state, getting rid of all that mess that you kind of inherited with the legacy systems that you've got and all those different patches, starting fresh from something that's modeled appropriately with your current needs from the data. But besides for that, I would say you want to make sure that you're leveraging the migration as part of your strategy, and you take advantage of the capabilities used for the migration to ensure that you have a stable environment that enables proactive approaches from all the different data professionals, improved responsiveness for your data professionals, and increase the usability of the data, which really touches on the point you mentioned before in the poll about understanding how to use the data appropriately. I think you have to take advantage of all this in your migration, right? So if we improve the responsiveness, it's a win-win for everyone. It's time back for the data team. and it builds trust with the business users. Increasing stability, does the same. It's all about building the trust and increasing the usability of the data so everyone knows where the data is, how it needs to be used, how you're allowed to use it, who's responsible for it, easily be able to collaborate about it and all that. And all this, of course, also really helps build the business case about the migration and about the different capabilities you need to have a successful migration that will carry you forward for the next, good amount of years.
Yeah, thanks, Samahai. Iadine, anything to add to that in terms of taking?
Yeah, so I'll take from I think I'll take from the last word of Amihai, which is like a business case. Actually, what we see on the ground is sometimes, and we mentioned it earlier, we mentioned the challenges around security, around localization. Also, there was in the poll something around people don't even understand what's the data. And it came second, which is quite interesting. So I think we need to pay attention. So the data migration to the cloud is not approached only from a technical perspective, because what will happen in such a case is that data is on premises, then it becomes on the cloud, and that's it. It's just like a technical upgrade. What will be important is to approach this from a business perspective, and the business case needs to be close to the company, let's say, to be take a step back to the company business value in terms like revenue, mainly. And the closer it is from a revenue generation, the more it has impact on the day-to-day life of the business, and the more that the quick win and that impact is very important to successfully continue in the same direction. So again, if I take an example of a bank or a commodity house, in general, they're trying to find case studies where they can monetize the data. So when it's on the cloud, and by doing it like that, immediately, because it's very close to revenue generation, it enables and it mobilizes the different forces of the company. And as soon as the data is on the cloud and they see a revenue coming out of it as part of the business case, then immediately then it becomes part of the DNA of the company. So to summarize it, I think when a data migration to the cloud needs to be approached from a business perspective, rather than only a technical and the data integration perspective.
Thanks, Amahai. And then that I think plays into this. One of the questions is, our senior execs are skeptical about moving enterprise data to the cloud. Can the panel suggest a strong business use case? So I guess, Amahai, you're saying that, or you're saying there's not a single use case, but just make sure you make it real to the business, not just base it on technology.
I'm saying, yeah, you have to really address business pain. I mean, as we saw in the poll, understanding the data, if you can prove that once you move to the cloud, you will have better traceability of the data, better explainability of the data, responsibilities. If we're talking about financial information, so where is our sensitive data? That's a simple question that can take a week to answer about a single piece of data, a single asset in our system. And if you can prove that as part of this migration process, you will be able to gain all these benefits for the business, I think that's where you got to aim.
I'm happy to give two quick examples and to just to showcase a bit the idea I said earlier. The first one is in the treasury business, and comparatively in insurance. So today, if we want to buy insurance, we go on a comparator website, right? And then they show us all the insurance products with different prices. How about if we want to buy an option or a swap? It doesn't exist. So some of the treasury businesses, they are working on making their pricing data or the products available for third parties to use it and then create new channels for revenue, so that SMEs and wealthy people can buy those products from phone apps or from websites. Okay. Second example is in the supply chain and commodity, and it's a very nice example. So we did work with the commodity house where, so let's say the tank, oil tank, moving from point A to point B, actually based on some weather conditions and some maybe if there are any strikes or any issues with any harbors, the contract can be innovated in the middle. So the tank can just move and move the product to a different point, a different harbor, simply because of that weather condition. And then there's a lot of, instead of just waiting until the weather conditions get better, etc. So it's a lot of saving of money and a better user experience for the end clients of those institutions. And again, here we are dealing with a kind of sensitive data because it's about the pricing, about the delivery of commodity products, but still it's feasible because it has a real immediate value on the business.
Just to pick up something that Aydin said, and it's just like a word of caution, I would say. So when we talk about cloud technologies and ingress and egress of data, I think one of the points that people should bear in mind is the actual cost of ingress and egress, right? So when you talk about on-premise platforms, you own the pipes, so you can put as much data through the pipes as possible. You own infrastructure, you can take it to its limit. When you talk about cloud-based technologies, you've got to think about the environment's going to shrink and grow. So that's fantastic for use cases where, that was mentioned earlier, like end of month, end of quarter, end of year processing, you spike, volumes of data may spike, but how do you predict those costs? And that's, a word of warning to the industry to say, when there's platforms out there that charge you for ingress, egress, data at rest, how do you predict that cost when you're doing your annual budget? So that's just something that people should bear in mind when they're talking about cloud-based delivery models and ingress and egress of data and even processing, right? There's platforms out there that charge for all of those components, and how do you predict those costs from a business perspective?
It's a very, very key point, but because the cost model is so different, I think there are a few organizations that have got caught out by the size of the bill that has arrived from time to time.
Correct. And ironically, we traditionally talk about development environments, UAT, test environments, and production, and everybody kind of factors in production. But you got to remember that a cloud-based delivery of data, there's no concept of development, test, and production. The cost is the same, right? It's how you set your environments up, and that's where you get caught out.
Yeah, and if I can put in another small plug for CDMC, it is one of the capabilities in CDMC is to have that facilitating the management of the costs is one of the capabilities that we call out that people need to have that. Thanks, Devendra. So Devendra, just staying with you then, could you talk us through an example of a financial institution that has adopted cloud-based service for enterprise data?
Yeah, so if I go back, so, the EDM platform that I look after is like 15 years old, and clearly it came from a world where it was deployed software. And that deployed software had, standard n-tier architecture, database server, application server, and a web server. And, the job of EDM back then was to provide clean authority, what we call gold copy data to the organization, and it was deployed on premise. But clearly, as time's gone on, they've seen the value of data management, they've seen the value of, data quality. But in the last, I would say 7 years or so, there's been a movement towards what's called managed service, right? So let the experts manage that infrastructure, let the experts do the patching, the upgrading, the implementation, and so forth. And that frees up the client's resources to do higher value tasks, right? Actually do data analysis, data integration, look after the quality of data. But as time's gone on, clients are like, they don't want to do that on premise, they want to hand that over to the experts, right? So clearly, when we talk about experts, it's generally the vendor who is the expert. Now, there has been a time where that was handed over to third-party integrators or, people who supply those types of resources that look after infrastructure. But generally, from what we've seen, they were not the experts, right? Because we as a data management platform, we're pushing out new features. We've got our pulse in the market in terms of what features required in the future, where the market's heading, new use cases. So, clients look to us to provide that expertise, not in terms of just infrastructure and running EDM on the cloud, but also IP in those use cases. So once a client's chosen us as their managed service provider, the client then can focus on looking at further use cases, be it price masters, be it, party masters, positions, transactions, and, actually look at the data sets and maximizing those data sets. And in that kind of journey, what we've seen is we take an on-premise instance and run it in our managed service, and it kind of runs in parallel. And the reason it runs in parallel is, at that point in time, and as mentioned earlier, you need to solidify your processes, right? So, if you look at clients, do they have the most bulletproof runbooks in place? In some instances, they're not. Some instances, spreadsheets, some instances, people, because they've been around for a long time. And you really need to solidify those runbooks and have a clear line of responsibility from us as a managed service provider on our cloud and the client themselves. The other aspect is the automation. How do you automate the handover point? How do you automate integration into third-party on-premise solutions as well? So once all of those runbooks are kind of put in place, the automation is put in place, the third component is testing, making sure that end-to-end chain is fully tested from an operational perspective and a data integration perspective. So, once all of that is done, our clients do see a reduced cost of ownership. They see an increased level of support. And it allows our clients, again, to focus on value add to their business versus doing, mundane middle back office type capabilities. That's kind of handed over to us, and we're the experts, right? And we see best practices not only for that client, but across all of our clients in the industry. So we can kind of package that and deliver that back as a value add to our implementations and the maintenance of those clients. And I'll say the third component is now we've moved our own platform from managed service into we're delivering software as a service capabilities as well. So that is truly a single version of our platform across all of our clients. So, last year we launched the data dictionary. This year we're launching, kind of no code, low code type capabilities in the platform, which our clients will leverage. So again, providing efficiency back to the client, reducing, IT risk back to the client, where we will be managing that software, the infrastructure. And as we roll out new features, they will immediately be available to our client base. So that's kind of the journey that our clients are going on. And then that final part at the end, which is that software as a service part as well.
Okay.
And then, we have a clear methodology in that process. So we'll look at the operational aspects. We'll look at the application integration, new business rules, the scheduling as well. So, where clients need to schedule these jobs between different systems or within the system itself. And then finally, the infrastructure part, right? So the whole BCP, DR testing, the penetration testing, we do as part of our core as business, but also EDM as a platform. And again, our clients see the benefits, all of that, where traditionally they would have to do all of those types of functions.
Okay, thanks, Devendra. That's a good view of the journey. Thank you. So let's start to wrap up, and let's try to leave the audience with some top tips. So could some of you provide sort of your best guidance, so something to think about as people start to work to moving their stuff to the cloud? Iadine first.
Yeah, so key ideas around sponsorship. So the cloud journey. So cloud today is on the critical path of any digital journey for any financial institution. And it's important for them. They will do it now or later. So if that point is clear to senior management, then they see obviously that it's better for them to start it sooner than later. And they need to be there sponsoring those initiatives and making the decisions and the arbitrage to help the middle management go through those challenges and just focus on the business case and on the adoption. Second one is, as Devendra very well explained it, is leverage experts and work with partners who have the established framework for 24/7 security and the knowledge around how to do it. And the last point is I like it personally because we see really a lot of value from it, is to inject more intelligence to that data on the cloud, AI, machine learning, DevOps, and all this tooling that increase the ability to leverage that data and get better outcomes out of it.
Great, thanks, Yadin. Amichai, some top tips?
Yeah, so as we said before, the first tip is the planning, of course. All the different aspects, just making sure you're bringing in everything necessary, but only what's necessary in the right way, including being able to track the progress easily, automatically with the necessary tools, and so on. We've got big plans for the data. Okay, I can't emphasize enough how important the stabilization phase is. You want to make sure that you're ensuring trust in the data. It's so much easier to maintain the trust than to regain the trust after. So being able to track everything during the stabilization phase, exactly when you think the project is over, everything's done, everything's been migrated and everything, being able to track that's like a really critical point in time that we've seen with our customers. You want to make sure that they're really able to feel comfortable with using the data that's gone through this huge transition. And the last point would be a little bit more about what we discussed earlier about leveraging. You want to make sure you leverage the migration process to help build that trust, to make sure that you can prove traceability or lineage, whether it's on-prem or cloud. We mentioned before, it takes time to migrate. You're going to have maybe a certain point of time where you have data both on-prem and on the cloud, different parts of your data landscape. You want to make sure that you're able to provide traceability for everything and understand how everything works together. It's not going to be enough to prove traceability only for what's been moved to the cloud. You have to prove it for all your data, right?
Yeah.
Make sure you have a good catalog that has good collaboration about the data so everyone understands how the data can be used, and make sure that it's used. That's the end game here, right? That's what we've all been working so hard on, creating this data. So the bottom line is it gets used the way it should be, whether it be in your different reporting, analytics, your data science projects, or embedded in your products or marketing strategies.
Thanks, Amichai. I guess, yeah, so it's a good opportunity to do data management well. Don't waste that opportunity.
Certainly.
Yeah. I think we're just about out of time. Apologies if I didn't get to any key burning top tips that others had. But thank you all. Thank you to all of our speakers for sharing their experience and their expertise. Thank you to Luxoft, Octopi, and IHS Markit, who are the sponsors for today's webinar. And just before we close, a few A-Team group items that might be of interest to you. If you scroll down to the bottom of your screen, you'll see additional options, so you can sign up for the May the 11th Data Management Summit. That's an in-person event. People are getting back together in a room after all this time. You can download the latest version of the Regulatory Data Handbook, and you can register for the next upcoming webinar on the 7th of April, tackling digital transformation challenges for operations teams. So that's it for today. Thank you again to the speakers, and thank you to all of you who have taken part in the webinar. Goodbye.